Jerry, Jason Dirt Show. I will get the date right today. Today's September the 29th. Is that right? It's Monday.
Yes, the Monday the 29th. Welcome to the Jason Dirt Show.
And you're not Batman today, you're Superman today, right?
Jumped in the Superman just for everybody.
Superman. So today's topic, I think last week, I don't know about you, Jerry, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with Joel. I think he was just a genuine good dude.
Yeah, good guy.
I like that. And I would encourage, I want to meet more people like that. So I haven't met him before, but I think anyone that's interested in jumping on the show, we are up to have it as long as you can talk about dirt, cleaning, sexy things like that. I'm down with it. So, but
That works. So for sure. Yeah, he's a great guy. So
good dude. And that's remote up there too. So that's not many people. So you gotta hustle to make things happen up there more so than New York City or Dallas, Texas or LA.
It's crazy.
But I was writing an article for the community. And again, I'm gonna probably roll this into one of our mentorship and coaching lessons, but everyone saw the news, and not to get in politics, the Crackle Barrel debacle, the logo, but there's this guy out there called Michael Girdley. I bumped into him on YouTube. If you get a chance, look him up. Michael Girdley, Girdley. It's Girdley, Girdley.com. The guy's just a geek on business. He loves business, and he basically looks at different businesses, and he really focuses on why they faltered, why they misstepped, why they failed. And some of the companies he's choosing, like Crackle Barrel, we'll talk about today, but he's talking about Lululemons. He's talking about Chipotle. He goes into all these different companies, Subway included, that just haven't had missteps and the common threads with those missteps. But he brought one up for Cracker Barrel, and I thought this was a good example of maybe something we could talk about, because I think you and I see it within our mentorship and coaching, not knowing your numbers, not knowing key metrics. But he talks about it, and I want to bring this slide up. And he starts with the Crackle Barrel the logo was really pulling the parachute. He uses the analogy of pulling a parachute when you're 10 feet off the ground. It was not the root issue. The root issue was going further back than that. Mm-hmm. And I'll pull up this slide here. If I can find here it is. But he talks about, man, this is lagging on me. Anyway, he pulls up leading versus lagging indicators, right? And I think that's the conversation. Is leading indicators are values are variables that predict future events. So you can look at things and say, hey, based on this leading indicator, we should see this in the future, versus lagging are those indicators that reflect the past conditions. So the analogy he made with the Cracker Barrel, and you probably can relate this to the commercial cleaning business, is that when things are good, people are looking at that lagging. They're looking at what's happened, in the past and what's going on. And I think the thing he says he's really got to get in front of is, it just because it is lagging doesn't necessarily mean the leading in the future is going to be successful as well. And what he used in this was Cracker Barrel. I'll use some of these things. The success is a lagging indicator. So I'll repeat that again. Success is a lagging indicator. And what he was saying was like, Cracker Barrel was knocking it out of the park. They were $3 billion in sales. They were 19 straight years of dining awards. They doubled the revenue per square foot to their competitors. They were just knocking it out of the park. Today, though, they're burning $700 million on a rebrand flip-flop, but that's not the real issue. And he goes into different issues that they weren't looking at the numbers. And one of the things talking about is the fixed cost. As they started losing business, their fixed cost stayed the same. Again, this is getting a little deeper than we usually get, but their fixed costs stayed the same, but their sales were going down. And they didn't adjust their fixed cost to those changes.
Well, and I think what the one point he made was, what are their box restaurants are 10,000 square feet, and they weren't filling them anymore because of lack of travel. It's an interstate organization. It's a food organization that's almost to every other exit. And I think one of the things when I read this, and we talked a little bit about it off air, but one thing that kind of impacted me a little bit was thinking about how our organizations, when we went through COVID, we were so busy winning, trying to help everybody win and keep employees, in their offices and doing everything we could. I don't know that we are aware of, like with any pandemic, what's the fallout going to be, right? And not to take it off a different path, but what is the fallout? And I think for cleaning companies, in the moment we were killing it,
Yeah.
but there was a little bit of, okay, now we got to go back. Things are starting to get normal again. Well, normal means people were working from home and not in massive buildings. So those things kind of went away, but we were able to survive and adjust based off of, you know, continuous sanitation of doorknobs and bathrooms and things like that. And I think one of the things that he brings up a point here is that, and it likens to, in our industry, is keeping a pipeline just doesn't guarantee you tomorrow.
Yep.
It's all, there's more leading indicators that you have to be aware of as a business owner, and you got to be talking to your team about it. Or if you're a one man show, you got to study and learn and understand, what do those things look like? Because for us in our industry, long term clients for Class A buildings where hundreds of people might come working today was no longer a thing. Matter of fact, here we are, what, 5 years later, and they're just starting to call people back to work. So the effects of a pandemic, it's, here we are 5 years later, that's just starting to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and you gotta, I think the other point he made was, um, how do we provide, what was it, Jack? Sustainability,
Yeah,
and
like
then
examples,
and
like, yeah.
yeah, how do we tighten up or streamline processes and procedures, and even on the customer facing side, what do we do to help them improve on their business practice as well, so that they don't look at janitorial and cut it.
Yeah. So here's what we talked about. I'll say it again. So lagging, meaning look at the past, what's
Yeah,
happening. So success, if you're having success, that's lagging. That's looking at what's going on in the past, what's going on today. Doesn't necessarily mean what's going to exist in the future. Again, hopefully it does, but success is a lagging indicator, the first thing. And he said, when you're really comparing yourself, he says, look at this thing, like Jerry said, your pipeline, just because it's full, doesn't necessarily mean that your leading is going to be your leading indicator is going to be positive. But he says things like, what are your competitors doing that you aren't doing? Maybe that's a tell for you to look at.
yeah,
Companies that endure don't wait until revenue drops. He makes then until what does it say? Companies that endure
yeah,
don't
yeah.
wait until revenue drops. They
You got to
adapt
see
while
it
they're
coming.
still winning.
You got to
Yeah.
see it coming.
You got to see it coming. So the other thing is, what other services are being asked for this you don't provide? Sustainability, better reporting, streamlined ordering, these things like this. And again, these are just, we're using correlations within the commercial cleaning business. So we're taking lessons learned from the Cracker Barrel and wrapping those into commercial cleaning. Also, the buyer personas are changing. I think as I get older, maybe Jerry, as you get older, it's not the same buyer before. Those guys who, when I was in my 20s and 30s that were in their 50s or 60s, now I'm in that guys in my 50s and 60s, and the 20s are coming in. And quite honestly, there's a lot less social, the people I used to deal with my younger age, they wanted that human interaction. Some of these new buyers coming in, they don't want to see people until they need to see people. They'd
Right.
rather text or email you, and I'll bring you in when I have a problem and I'm in trouble. And I think
Yeah.
that's some
Mhm.
things you need to look at as a leading indicator of what is that buyer persona going to change like? Who's that buyer you're getting these nice contracts with? Who's behind them? Replace them if you know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I thought the fixed cost was something that we talked to a client of ours in Vegas. In Vegas, whether you guys know it or not, is taking a hit with the amount of tourism coming in, and basically it's not the value proposition it used to be. Everything in Vegas is just sky high. And, the analogy I use, I don't know if we talked about it on one of the other shows, was we were in the Luxor, one of the hotels for the ISSA last year. And just to turn on the refrigerator was $50 a day. That's
Yeah,
crazy. Little,
yeah,
little fridge, this big, $50 a
yeah,
day. But that fixed cost can creep up on you. So as your business, hopefully it doesn't, but if your business does take a hit on sales, let's just say it takes a 10% hit because you lost one of your biggest clients, or a 5% or a 3%, can you make adjustments to that fixed cost to adjust and right size the organization? And again, you might have enough in the pipeline you know it's going to close in the next 3 to 6 months that you can go ahead and keep those expenses where they are. But if you don't, are you making those adjustments real time?
yeah. I mean, like, if you're out and you've got a $30,000 a month account and you lose it, is your business producing enough to sustain the weather or weather that storm till you either replace it or certainly, try to fill in the gaps there because I know there are a lot of people that's typically when you get in that 2 to 5 million range and you lose something, you're like, oh, what do I do? Do I have to fire somebody? Not or lay somebody off. I'm sorry, not fire them. Or do I, what do I have to cut back and where? And that's why I always encourage people as much as they can on the operational side, run strong and solid, but as tight as you can.
Yep.
My theme is always have your operations ahead of your sales. But and it sounds like I'm saying two different things. I'm not. What I'm saying is just be tight. There's a lot of other areas besides people that you can really be tight in, and you've got to find out how that looks and how that works for you. It might be that, your office space. I've not really found a lot of janitorial companies that need 10,000 square foot office space to
Yeah.
operate.
Yeah.
Most everybody can operate out of under 5,000 square feet. Yeah, does that mean you got people sharing offices or yeah, it might be tight, but until you get in the 20, 30, $40 million range, you can function out of a pretty small office space. And then you got to look at your vehicles or you got to look at your inventory, your supplies. What are you doing um, to manage that process to buy down a percentage or two or three or four or five so that when something like this happens, and Cracker Barrel, their biggest issue was having these box stores every other exit, and it started slowing down after well, obviously the pandemic and then afterwards, and they didn't or couldn't, I don't wanna speak because I don't know, but they didn't or couldn't or didn't foresee how do we make the adjustment, and a lot of times, people lean on that name thinking, "Okay," and
Yeah.
I did read another article, this recent transition on their logo and all that, and they're rebranding their stores. It's the logo thing and all, that's a political thing. I'm gonna set that aside. But when you look at a couple of the stores that were redone, um, you can see they've cut those boxes in half, expanded their retail sales a little more, and added more food elements, than what they had before and they've had good success on a couple of those stores. Some of those stores, they've cut out the retail area altogether because the inventory was too high to keep it
Yeah.
stocked and supplied. So let's just sell food because that's what we're really good at. So they took that area and made it into a waiting area instead of having people wait so much outside. So I mean, there's
I
you
would
know,
dare say that the way those things are structured too, and again, we're taking too deep on Cracker Barrel, but I guarantee there's at least 5% theft on that shrinkage on those stores because the way you have to
yeah,
maneuver around, there's so many areas just to tuck things in. And anyway,
yeah.
that's not to be, at the time.
It's not up to us, yeah.
But
So
here's the last point I liked about this, and I think this is also we talk about this in our coaching session as well. But Cracker Barrel relied on professional managers who reported to corporate. They were not entrepreneurial operators who felt the
mm,
sting of every lost customer. And
yeah,
they use the analogy of Cracker Barrel versus Texas Roadhouse. And if anybody's ever been to Texas Roadhouse, those things are bustling. They're kicking all the time. And what they used the analogy was Cracker Barrel was more of a corporate culture. Here's the playbook. You execute the playbook, regardless of what you're seeing, what the numbers show. You do what we tell you to do. And I think to a certain level that's fine. But Texas Roadhouse took this opposite approach, and they were given managers ownership stakes into the performance of the stores. And I think
right,
that should be something that's Jerry and I talk about that all the
yeah,
time. Is everyone in your organization should be selling and everyone should be incentivized in some form or fashion to sell new opportunities, upsell, cross sell, all these things. It may not be the same as a sales professional getting paid because that's their core job, but everybody should be looking for those opportunities to upsell, cross sell, bring on brand new customers.
right, and your quality checks, quality reviews, tie all those incentives into it the best you can, and that way everybody has the same mindset. And listen, when we say that, I would challenge people, don't make it $10, $25 a quarter or something, because that doesn't incentivize people. Make it worthwhile,
Yeah.
Um, And the old adage, it takes money to make money is true. But as you're making money and you reward the others that are around you, you're going to make more money. And so make that incentive worthwhile to them. And if you're an old school like me, look, don't, I say I'm old school, but I'm actually pretty progressive on this stuff, but don't have the old school mindset of, well, we gave them $250 a quarter. I'm like, look, they blew that in gas getting back and forth to work and, in 2, 3 weeks. So make it worthwhile, make it something that they go, this has an impact on my family and on my livelihood. I'm going to work hard on it.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you
gonna
got
look
to
for
have,
it, actively look for it, not just work hard, but I'm gonna look for it because
right. Yeah. They're going to
that's half
find
the battle
ways.
to the battle is just looking for the opportunities to say,
Right. I'm going
boom.
to find ways to impact this business and make it more successful.
And again, not everyone's an entrepreneur and everyone's going to be the same
Mhm.
level. But I think if you put those incentives, I think you're going to make some entrepreneurs out of this because at the end of the day, I think everyone, especially in this environment, they're looking for extra hours. Well, we can give you extra hours and some kind of back end, something
Yeah.
for those
Yeah. I
opportunities.
mean, you put something on the table for your employees quarterly, they can make extra 750 to $1,000. That's a big deal, you know? So
And I think if it does carry over, I think the clients will see it in the sense of better performance,
absolutely.
better consistency. I think the turnover rate would probably drop as well. I'm guessing at that one. I'm also thinking that retention rate is going to go up as well with those clients. So, what is the cost of acquisition? What is the cost of
Yeah.
losing an account and transitioning those employees over, or moving them
Right.
around, or losing them altogether? So,
Well, and think about this. You want to get your company to where it's so consistent that there's an expectation of your service and the response of your team from every avenue. I mean, think about it. When we go to Chick-fil-A, we know what the standard is, right? We talk about this all the time, Jack. We know what the standard is at Chick-fil-A, but how many times have you gone to another, drive-through and they've taken your order and they're good and you go, well, thank you. And
yeah,
what are you waiting for in your
yeah,
mind?
my
My
pleasure.
pleasure. That's
Yeah.
what you're waiting for, no matter where you are, right? So the same, and I'm saying that to use that as there's an expectation that you can create from your company forward facing to your customers to where they know when something happens or when something needs to happen, it's going to happen. They just know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And let me tell you that's a big deal. I did it a couple days ago. I'm in the drive-thru. I'm like, the girl was very nice. I was like, well, thank you so much. And I'm like, oh, is she gonna say anything or no? Because it's my pleasure. And I'm like,
Well,
I
which
mean,
by the way, and I guess I think I've thrown this in another we talk about this in a coaching session, but I find this hard to believe, but I heard it on a podcast. It took Chick-fil-A over 5+ years to get
yeah,
that across all of their employees. Think about that. That one simple phrase. So think about your organization. If you're
yeah,
lagging indicator successful, but you're going to make these changes to hopefully the leading will show that they're going to be. You've got to start before you got to start years
yeah.
before you actually want to get to
Right.
that point.
And retention starts within. Don't think that well, retention starts with me. I'm just going to have to make it happen. I'm gonna talk it, talk it, talk it. It has to happen within your organization first. You
Yep.
have to have the mindset of, and for us in our organization, when we run it, it was great customer service and great employee service. We treated people really well, and you have to do that. And so when you think about employee and customer retention, it starts with the internal mindset of, number one, I'm just going to be nice to people. I'm just going to be really good. I'm going to communicate well. I'm going to call them back. I'm going to talk to them in a professional manner. And I'm pretty much going to say yes to whatever they're looking for, even if I got to go back to my team and figure it out. Because you got to help take that problem off their desk. And the more you do that, the more invaluable and indispensable you become. They listen, their boss may come to them and say, hey, we got to cut some finances here. The last thing on their mind is the cleaning company because you
Yep.
solve all their problems. And that's how you do it. So sorry, I get excited about that. So I probably went off a tangent, but
No, no, I think this guy again. I'll say his name again. Look him up. It's Girdley, GIRDLEY.com. I think what
great
he's doing is
article.
fascinating, and I
Yeah.
think how he's breaking down businesses. And this is not just for again, we're talking about Cracker Barrel in relation to commercial cleaning. So whoever thought that connection would be. But then
Yeah.
again, you hear people talking about Bucky's. What is Bucky's known for?
Yeah.
Their size, but also the cleanliness of their restrooms. So
Yeah.
cleaning has a lot more of an impact and a lot more cross pollination,
Yeah.
of different businesses. So
Yeah, I mean, you think about on that note of customer service, you're right. The Buc-ee's is number one. They got the best like brisket sandwiches, on the highway. But when you go to when you go to a Pilot restaurant or a restroom or I'm trying to think of the other name of the place we stop all the time, but we used to until Bucky's came along. So, um, but you go in and they got buttons for you to push. Please clean the bathroom thing, and they're doing a pretty good job of keeping the bathroom up. Well, then Bucky saw that and they were like, "Oh, we'll see your button system. We'll one up you by putting 2 attendants in every bathroom."
yeah,
And every it's almost like they're cleaning in between every person. And the only other place I've seen that is traveling to Brazil where, there's a porter there, and as soon as you're done, man, he's, like, getting you out of the way, and he's cleaning the toilet, cleaning the seat, disinfectant, wipe it down, and boom, people right back in behind you. And they do not let you if you're waiting, you gotta wait, And so, at Buc-ee's, they just took that, "We'll see your button system and one up you by putting it in there." So that's a great example, Jack, of the customer
no.
service, and they're
So I
packed.
think I think we I'm gonna look for more of these cross trends of
Yeah,
things that that other companies that we can relate to the commercial cleaning. But I think the takeaway here is really thinking about your leading indicators versus your lagging. Just
yeah,
because you're successful today, what does that leading indicator look like? And if you don't know what that leading indicator looks like, and to Jerry's point earlier, just because you have a healthy pipeline doesn't mean it's a leading
right.
indicator. So your ability to see the future further than a month out, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, it gets unclearer as you go along with time. But get ahead of that leading indicator. Think about the fixed cost, and then really, really think about what is your competitors doing that you're not doing. What are your customers changing? How are they asking for things? And then, lastly, that incentive for your employees to help you drive ownership and drive revenue. I think those are some good, great takeaways from the day. And we went down. This was a little heavy lift for us. So those that are listening, this might have been a little heavy lift, but this is some stuff you have to be thinking about. And this
Yeah.
ties back to the numbers we talk about all the time because the numbers don't lie. And I think emotions lie, numbers don't lie.
Yeah, it might seem like a heavy lift to people, but just listen to it again, make a couple of bullet points of things that you can address right away in your organization and make improvements. That's the key. That's why we do all this. There's some nuggets here that you should walk away with every time and be like, "Man, these guys are great," and
Yeah.
they're amazing. But
What's the
sometimes,
oh, here it is. Here's the term I saw. I saw this when I was doing some research on this. Words talk. I'll say it again. Words talk, numbers scream. I
yeah,
love that. And that's
yeah,
a nice little analogy.
yeah,
Words
you do.
talk, numbers scream.
Yeah,
So
you got to know your numbers. I mean, I looked at my numbers almost every day. The office staff, the CPA, or our accountant in house, she was like, "You're killing me." I'm like, "I might be killing you, but there's a percentage to be had somewhere that we can utilize to continue to grow this business." So,
it takes. But
yeah.
all
So,
right, good conversation. So
yeah, man.
appreciate it. I guess we'll be back on Friday. We don't have a guest this Friday. I'm gonna see if I can wrangle one up. We have one next week though, but I'm gonna see if I can wrangle one before. If not, I've got a topic I want to talk about. If you got something, Jerry, let's bring it to the table. If anybody's got a topic, do us a favor, drop us an email, Jerry@getroute.com or Jack@getroute.com. I keep forgetting this. I should do this on the very front. We are getting more subscribers. So subscribe. I think what that does, it's not a monetary thing. It's more about just getting the word out. All of a sudden you like and subscribe, more people will see access to what we're doing. And again, we're kind of doing this ad hoc live and kind of as we're kind of just going through our days. So this is it's a passion, a love for us. I hope you guys are seeing some value.
Yeah, awesome, man. It's been a lot of fun, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. So, yeah, like us and send it out to your friends, and yeah,
Go from there.
good
All right.
stuff.
Talk to you later this week.
All
Talk to
right.
you Friday, everyone.